A thought occurred to me today, Spencer.
SpaghettiOs.
Yeah, boy. I realize I think you might have something on me in the writing world business, something or other.
In the writing?
You've done something that I don't think I have done.
Oh, yeah?
I was thinking, and I cannot for the life of me remember writing a epistolary story.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure you have, your whole story is not epistolary, but like half of it is.
Okay.
I guess that counts, like written in like a letter.
Oh, yeah.
Like how Dracula was.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I'm just thinking, did I ever write a story like that? I think I messed around. Maybe I never completed one that I know of.
All right, yeah. What are you thinking? The one, because the one that I can think of just off the top of my head that was kind of like it is the one with like the manager and the note.
Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah, because I think like the second half of the story was all just note.
Yeah,
or like
something.
A letter or something.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Also, I think it would be fun to write a whole story, like a 10,000 word story in letters and documents and stuff like that.
Now the question is, if you choose to do that, do you have to set that story in a certain time period?
No, you could do emails. You can, I don't know, text message. That'd be the modern version, text message story.
Oh my God.
I'm sure people have already attempted that.
Yeah, because that's like how all those stories were pretty much written, back in the day, right? That was like the basic.
It was popular for a while, especially around Dracula. The time that was published, I think I remember a lot of the stories we looked, because it was Frankenstein an epistolary story as well. I think it was. Somebody was telling it.
It's
not
like
letters, but somebody was telling the story, right?
It's like 3 degrees, because it's like a guy telling a story of a letter that he wrote from a guy that told him.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I remember, that was weird. I tried to put that on my mind. Yeah, so I think that'd be a cool way to go. Something about like more, not experimental stories, but just different ways of telling stories. For like maybe some submissions I want to do in the future, something to stand out. Because I don't read too many like epistolary stories anymore. Like you don't see too many stories now that are set in letters.
Well, like I said, I think just because of like with like the modern times, and I don't think it would work as well like if you try to switch them from just like letters.
But I feel
to
like
emails, like, you know what I mean?
But I feel like you're thinking too small though, sir. Think about somebody that writes a story that's kind of like, what was the name of that comic we did for the last book club, where they were all in that mansion?
Oh, Nice House on the Lake.
Yeah, so that had a lot of pages where it was like chats.
Yeah.
Well, think about how you could do that in a story. You can have online chats, tweets, which you probably have to call it something else, but tweets, social media posts like on Facebook, Instagram. You can have a whole story told just from those different things, and you could probably do the formatting like that. So, because I've seen books where they have text messages now, and it shows like a picture, like in the text of a text message. That's what it looks like. I think that'd be like an interesting thing to read.
Again, like
I don't know if it would be good, but
I think like dialogue and people talking, it works, but I feel like it would still be hard to like tell a story in text. Like I'm gonna like if I'm texting you, like in a text message, I'm writing to you like. And then so he walked down the dewy hillside to his death or what, like,
Well, I mean, like that Martin O'Kyan Graveyard Clay was all dialogue. And there's a lot of books that are written that's just straight dialogue, and there is no narration like this. You don't have any of that. No descriptions of places unless it comes from the characters. It would be something that would be a challenge to try.
Yeah.
But I think it would be fun. Probably I'd fail at it, but it'd be worth trying. So I think in the future I'm going to mess around with that. Like you said, though, about the time period, I would be the letter guy.
Yeah. Like
I would like to write the letters. What made me think of this is I just submitted a story to 3 different publications, and the story, it was one of the old ones on the site. It was like about a woman who brought her kids to the beach, and she's pretty much like hooked to her phone and kind of forgets about them while they're playing in the water, and then looks up and realizes they're not there. And it's like, oh shit, did they drown? Like, what,
Yeah.
Well, I went back and edited that story for submissions and did a little rewriting on it, and I added, because I had text messages in it, but since we originally I had that on DPW, so I was able to do it not necessarily picture form, but I did like the color of the text, like blue letters on the right and red on the left, or whatever it is, or whatever iPhones colors are. I don't fucking know. But anyway, I did that, but in just like the submission, I used not line breaks. I forget what the fuck they're called on Google Docs. Not a heading neither. It's just a line that goes across. So basically, I blocked them in, just the text messages, and I format them so like the one girl, the lady, hers are kind of in the middle, whereas the guy she's talking to is on the left. And like I think it kind of looks neat. Like it looks neat on the when you read it on the mobile. On the computer version, it's a little but on the mobile version, I'll have to show you I'll show you when we go on break here. But on Google Docs, like just on the mobile version, I think it kind of looks cool. So I was thinking like I could probably write a story featuring like heavy text messages and stuff. Though if would I want to?
Yeah.
Because in my novel, I have a very brief, like maybe it's near the beginning. There's a text exchange with emojis and stuff, and it's only a few lines. And obviously, I wrote that by hand, so it's a little different than how it would turn out. But I'm just like, I've seen it in modern books that I just flip through in the bookstore that have that. And it's formatted in a specific way to look like text messages. If you're telling a whole story, you have to expand that to message boards and which could be good for like a crime if you're doing like not necessarily like a true crime, but just like any kind of crime fiction you're writing, you could do a whole chat blog and just different things like that, and then really break it up. And again, there's probably people already doing that we just don't know about, but I'm going to try to write one of those one day, but not anytime soon. And you already wrote 50 of those you just didn't tell me about.
Yeah, they were okay.
And now we're going to go in space music and all that, and we'll have you got a topic?
Real quick, I wanted to put out there that I've had a little bit of an actual reason to not get any writing done the past couple of days. Recently, my brother and his wife had their first kid, a girl.
Congratulations.
Thank you. They healthy, 8 pounds. Olivia's her name, and so already kind of gave me an idea for a story, like a little maybe something for like a submission. I think would maybe be something cool for like a
literary
for like a submission piece that I don't think I've ever seen like anybody really kind of tackle before. So
we'll talk about that off air.
Yeah.
Shout out baby Olivia for being Spencer's muse, apparently.
Yeah, maybe,
cool, yeah.
Which also made me think about maybe trying to write some younger, like, YA-ish kind of stuff, just so whenever she gets a little bit older.
Something she could read?
Yeah.
Well, that's what, I mean, we talked about this before, but I have toyed with the idea, especially after reading the Graveyard book. I guess to a degree Coraline, but mainly the Graveyard book by Neil Gaiman. I was just like, it'd be really cool to write a children's story that is, kids could read but isn't dumbed down for kids.
Or like something their parents could read to them.
Yeah.
That both of them
could enjoy.
Yeah.
I would like to maybe do that in the future, because as I do get older and a little more sentimental, I also think, I would like kids to be able to read my books.
Yeah.
And as of now, they probably wouldn't be able to. But
right.
I would like to. I like to write more positive things now than I did when I was a bit younger.
Well, that's what I was even thinking about on the drive here, giving her this shout out. I'd be like, it'd be nice she can hear this in like 15 years when she's old enough to listen to one of our episodes.
When we're on episode 5001. So anyway, folks, we will check you in a few minutes. And I guess for them it's like 5 seconds. Yeah. But for us, I got to look on the goddamn globe for your stupid
probably going to be another 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. You are listening to the DPW podcast. I am your host, Caleb James. With me today, Spencer, the Paraguay Possum Puncher Church.
Them possums were asking for it.
Are there possums in Paraguay?
Not anymore, there's not.
And is that how you pronounce Paraguay? Uruguay is also a country. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right either, but that is unimportant.
Like most of the episode.
Yeah. Today's topic is brought to you by Spencer Church. This was your idea. You wanted to do, and you weren't very specific.
No.
You wanted to do a writer's roundtable, so to speak, but not have writers here, actually.
No.
It would be more like, they always have the, if you could have a coffee with one writer, dead or alive. So you had an idea of a top 5 writers.
Yeah.
Now, is this an actual roundtable where all the writers are there at the same time? Or is it just a one-on-one? Or does it not matter?
Well, the way I originally thought was it was like everybody there at once. It's like you and 5 writers.
Well, I brought that up because that actually would change my top 5.
Yeah.
I just went on me speaking with them one-on-one.
Yeah, I could see how that could.
But because what we are doing here is a top 5 honorable mentions and dishonorable mentions. So when I get into my honorable mentions, I'll just name some of the people that would have been in my top 5 if I'm doing a collective.
Yeah.
Because that does change the dynamic because, I would want this author to talk to that author, like, that kind of stuff.
See, and this is where you got me. I couldn't really come up with any dishonorable mentions. Like, I couldn't really.
You will agree with mine.
I'm sure I came up with one.
I think I know who that is. Maybe. So, Mr. Spencer Church. I guess I could go first. You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
I'll go first because mine's probably pretty detailed. Trying to think.
You going with dishonorable or dishonorable?
No, I'm just going to do my top 5.
Oh, we're doing top 5 first?
Then we'll do honorable mentions.
Okay.
Then the dishonorable mentions. Just that way I could explain, because like I said, with the roundtable discussion, I want to include change things up. But I think it would be fun if you tried to guess my top 5.
Okay.
And I'll bring up my list.
I would see the top 5 because I think the top 5 we might have. I was thinking of the dishonorable mentions is what I thought you were saying whenever, agreed. I would agree with you. But I'm interested, to see if there's like 1 or 2 that we might have the same.
All right. Well, see if you could guess my top 5 first, just offhand.
Offhand, I'm going to go Poe.
Yes.
Murakami.
Close. He's in my honorable mentions. He actually made the first draft, and then I moved him, switched him for another Japanese writer.
The guy who did like the Life for Sale guy, or that guy.
Yeah, Yukio Mishima.
And then I'm gonna go with, for some reason, I want to say Hunter S. Thompson.
Yes, that's the one I thought you were not gonna get. Yes, he made my top.
Gaiman.
No Gaiman.
Should I know these other 2?
Yes, and they're dead.
And they're dead? Okay.
Actually, it appears my top 5 are all dead now. I had some living ones, but I moved them out because I feel like with living ones, we'll get into that in my honorable mentions.
What's his face? The Conan guy.
Nope.
No?
Give up?
Yeah.
All right. Well, first, I just want to say that I am personally, this is just and I'm sure you're not even going to have them on there, I'm personally excluding any writers from before 1800s. Okay. Just because I feel, like Shakespeare, Cervantes, Milton.
That's a little too dead.
Yeah, Dante. For one, if we're having a writer's roundtable and I'm there discussing with them, what do you I don't know. If I could even understand them, Dante I wouldn't. Shakespeare would be difficult, just the English he used, but I wouldn't have. It would be too weird.
That makes sense.
Maybe I'm being too logical on that one, but I went more modern. My break point was the 1800s because I do feel like after the 1800s, people could, we're all writers. We can have imaginations. Poe can imagine what the future might be like. He'd be disgusted, but he can imagine it. All right. So my first one, which you did not get, probably be a surprise to you, James Joyce.
Okay.
My selection for James Joyce.
You just want him to read his thought fiction letters to you.
Yes.
To see if you get the accent right.
And maybe also Finnegan's Wake, just because I want my mind blown. Not so much his work, actually, because I'm not actually a huge fan of what I've read of his so far. I'm separating the writing and the prose from the actual story. Okay. I'm not a fan of his stories so much. They're just kind of basic. If it was going stories, Martin O'Kane I find is way better with his Irish stories. James Joyce, one I think I would like to ask him about.
What the fuck, man?
Yeah, I would like to ask him about his more sesquipedalian prose and how he crafted a musicality to those long words and all those syllables. I would think that would be really interesting just to find out how he did that.
That's if he talked to you that way.
Well, he has the Irish lilt, so he probably would. There is a musicality to the Irish language.
I think I got the other one.
Well, let me finish Joyce and you can guess. I think that would be really interesting just to find out how someone goes about writing something that has such rhythm and almost the writing's more, especially with Ulysses, the writing and the rhythms and it's almost music. That's almost more important than the story because the story Ulysses is takes place in one day. I mean, it's kind of based on the Odyssey. like how the setup, like the structure of it, but I just think it would be really interesting to find out how somebody, especially like how the fuck did you back before dictionaries were really, I mean, they were there, but they couldn't have been that great. Like, how did you know all these words? Right. How did you come up with all this shit? What kind of research did you do? And also I would, he's a hard drinking Irish man. So I feel like we'd be buddies there.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. And one, what was your guess for my final?
Hemingway.
No. But that would have been interesting because when I think about the Roundtable, Hemingway would have been a good fit. Also, I originally had Alan Moore in there because I was thinking Roundtable, not because I wanted to listen to Alan Moore, because I could just take his class like I am. I don't have to talk to him to get information from him. But he was hugely inspired by Joyce, and I would love to see, like, he could answer or ask the questions better than I can, you know?
You would want him with you when you were talking to Joyce so you could maybe have a bit of a translator.
Yeah, like, I think that would be really cool to have, those guys talk. And it'd be also just, like, watching these people interact would be really fun. Like I said, it's probably going to be a long episode, so I'm going to speed this up a little. Next was, I'm surprised you didn't get Tolkien.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And for me, again, the writing style, but more about his inventive language, his love for the English language and just languages in general, how he came to write his own, like that kind of stuff more than just the actual, like, I'm not a Lord of the Rings fanboy that I'd be asking him all these questions about the Silmarillion and stuff.
You don't want to ask him about the Hobbits?
No, I don't care about any of that shit. I read them, I get it. But I would like to just talk about, like, his especially the way how do you create the Silmarillion? How do you create a history that doesn't exist?
Yeah.
So detailed that the reader would, like, if civilization crashed and aliens came down and they picked up the Silmarillion,
they would think it was...
It's like, what the fuck? Where was this at?
Yeah.
Like, why can't we find the remains of this place? Next up, Edgar Allan Poe, as you guessed. I don't know what I would talk to Poe about exactly. One, I would, if like we were able to bring them back from the dead, I'd be like, hey, how'd you die, man?
Yeah,
like,
right.
what happened exactly? Like, I would want to know that. Now, Poe almost, believe it or not, fell into my dishonorable mentions because he did seem kind of like a pompous butt munch that, like, just from what I gathered with his the way he treated other writers he knew. But you don't know how there's not enough information to know if that's, like, just because I have another one of my dishonorable mentions that falls into that category. I don't know if he would treat all writers like that or if it was just like, he just had some critics he didn't like and it was a different time period. But I would like to talk to him just about his poetry and just his stories. And I don't know exactly what Poe could teach me. Also, like, how did you get such a crazy vocabulary and why did, like, people... Well, he was before the Civil War, but I just want to be like, why did everyone during that time period, even if they seem like they should be illiterate, could just write these masterful letters to each other? It's a little crazy.
Even though that I know, like, it's been kind of, hyped up, he wasn't as much of, like, the drunkard that they always kind of made him to be. Would you still kind of see how much of a drinking you could keep up with him, or you wouldn't even want to try to go down that road?
It could go two ways. One, I would destroy him because our booze is so much better quality that he wouldn't be used to it. Or two, I'm wrong and their fucking booze was strong as shit. And because all they did was drink booze because the water was bad. Maybe he was a stronger constitution for drinking. I don't know which way it falls, honestly, because I would imagine, like, our gin is probably way better quality and consistent proof than 1920s bathtub gin.
Could you imagine if you handed Poe a White Claw?
that would be like, this water is delicious. Like, next up, Yukio Mishima. Besides the fact that he was an avid bodybuilder, I would have that in common and talk about the fitness. But he was, like, really short, like 5'3", 5'2". Like, he was really short. So, and he was a closeted gay man, so that would be something we could bring up. I don't know if he'd like to talk about that. But his passion for writing and his love of just art in general is really interesting to me. He was, like, a big fan of those no plays, which I don't really understand. Those are like those, are they the same as kabuki plays? I don't know. I don't even know if that's a thing. But they, like, wear the mask, like, with the expressions and weird music. And you see him in old samurai movies.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck? But because he was really right-wing. I don't know what that would translate to politics in the U.S. now. I don't think it's the same at all. But he was, like, super pro-emperor, pro-samurai. But imagine talking to a man that, at least in his mind, held such honor that he would kill himself.
Yeah, I mean,
in a traditional Sabuku, guts out, head chopped off kind of way. Like, if you're that passionate about samurai honor, Whereas from modern lens, like, that's kind of like mental illness. But that's no different than like a lot of the religious fanaticism we see, in America. But I would want to talk to him about just like, how does this, like, is this real passion? Or I just don't know, like, the mindset behind that. I can't really fathom being that passionate about something that you'd kill yourself and anything like that. He just seemed like a really interesting guy. Next up, Hunter S. Thompson. I don't think I really need to explain that choice.
Yeah.
His writing, I mean, I've only read the one book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but it was excellent. And I really liked the writing style. And he just was a really, really weird dude. And I'd probably bring Johnny Depp too. It was like, this is buddy, you got to do that. But just like, I just want to know what you think of America now.
Oh my God. Could you just...
I would love his like opinions on modern politics and society in general.
Could you just imagine like him being here for the last couple election
cycles,
my goodness, man?
It would be great. And
no matter which way you lean, that would have been interesting.
And because he died in I want to say like 2006 or something. I don't know if he ever met Trump, but he knew Trump. He knew Joe Biden. Anyway. Yeah. He knew, all these presidents and all these people. Like, it'd be really interesting to see, like, that's where they went. You guys fucking hired the fucking reality TV guy to be a president? Like,
Orange Man.
Yeah, the guy that was in Home Alone. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. So that'd be just kind of interesting to get his take on like modern society. And if I was going that way too, even though you really don't count it as a writer, I mean, you still write. I would bring George Carlin. Well, if I was to get opinions of modern society.
Well, I guess we forgot to mention in the beginning of it. Whenever I said we could be like,
you didn't really set the parameters exactly.
The writer of anything, like movie.
Yeah, so like a comedy writer.
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah, because I mean, if you really looked at it, Carlin's comedy could easily be translated to essays.
Oh yeah.
So I would count that. Even though he's not on my list as an honorable mention, Carlin honorable mention, because that would be like a great conversation just to have with that guy, just to get his opinions on things. So now here's my honorable mentions. Haruki Murakami. Mm-hmm. I originally picked him, but then I took him off just for the fact that, one, I don't know if there's much I would gain from him because, besides the fact that he's already written, I think, a book on writing, and has done interviews and just stuff like Stephen King is also on my list for the same reason. Every thing I could probably gain from him, I can already get, knowledge. And he's still alive, so it's not like I couldn't just meet the guy. Here's an interesting pick I toyed with Quentin Tarantino. Yeah. Even though he's only actually written one book, he's written 1,000 screenplays. Yeah. His way of going into novel writing, though, and screenplays is very interesting because he's going with a cinematic lens. So he's thinking of how to tell a story that would translate to film, which is like why when I read Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it was really cool to see how he went from telling just a normal prose story to, well, that was in the movie, and I could kind of see, you could almost see him wanting to be like, then camera pans right. I mean, he doesn't, but I would love just to get his opinion on how he would write, a novel, and then how that novel can translate to a screenplay to the movie, like how you go about that. Because I don't really know much about screenplays. Yeah. I never written one, and I don't think I've ever really read any. So Once Upon a Time is the closest I got to a screenplay, but that was his novel version of the screenplay. Next up, Stephen King, I said. Neil Gaiman falls in the same category. When he took his master class, I mean, what more am I going to, other than just wanting to shoot the shit with him? I don't know if there's anything I gained from him. Toni Morrison, that would be an interesting choice. I'm just not familiar enough with her work because I haven't read her stuff yet to be able to have a conversation with. That's why she didn't make my top 5. I haven't read Beloved yet. She's one of those ones that's been on my list for a while, just haven't gotten to. But, you got like I think she won a Nobel Prize. I know she won the Pulitzer. But, one of the most highly celebrated, up until she died in, I think, 2019, she was considered one of the top, one of the best of American writers, alive. Now it's just Cormac McCarthy. Next up, I have Robert E. Howard, Conan. Yeah, not really anything I could get from the guy, just, how'd you come up with Conan before? Because it's easy now. Like, oh, yeah, you wrote that guy because he's like Conan. No, back then, there was no Conan. He made those characters.
What I think would be interesting with that would be talking to him about having to write during that time period of like
the pulp magazines,
of having to get things out by a certain time and a certain quality and that kind of stuff, I think would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and I should have said this earlier. Broad statement. One of the few or first questions I'd probably want to talk to or ask in conversations I'd start up with these people is the writing process.
Yeah.
And the creative output and how they go about that stuff and even submissions and getting published. All that stuff is just broad across the board, so I don't have to name that every time. Next up, I have Langston Hughes. The Harlem Renaissance movement is really fascinating to me, and I have his poetry collection. It's so big, I haven't gotten through it. I've read like quite a few, and I really like his style, and I think he just had a really interesting life. Ernest Hemingway. The problem with Ernest Hemingway is, one, and he could almost fall in the dishonorable mentions just because he seemed like kind of an over-the-top douche. But depending on what period of his life, he seemed like an interesting guy. One of those like quiet, deep thinkers that when you talk to him with his bravado and machismo, he probably doesn't seem like he's that deep of a person. I'm just assuming, obviously. I have not seen any, I seen one interview of him when he was like brain damaged and old.
Yeah.
That doesn't count. You didn't get the interviews with him when he was a young man and stuff. But he was also a heavy drinking man and a partier, and him and Joyce together, obviously, in the Lost Generation, Joyce would start fights and then have Hemingway come and fight, take care of the guy. And I like boxing and stuff too, and talking sports. And he would be a fun guy to, I don't know necessarily fun guy would be the right term, but he'd be somebody I would like to meet and talk to, but he wouldn't make my top 5. And again, depending on what kind of a douche he might actually have been, he might have just dropped right down to that dishonorable mentions. It's just one of those people you don't know how they would be,
Yeah.
Because he's more of a myth and legend than he is a human anymore.
You're right.
Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah.
Sci-fi stories. He just had interesting ideas. Very creative person. Martin O'Kyan. He would replace James Joyce if it wasn't for the fact that I don't even know if he could speak English. I'm sure he could, but he didn't. He only spoke Irish, and I don't know what I would talk to that guy about.
Yeah.
Because he was like into the, super pro Irish movement and get the English out and shit like that. Not my wheelhouse. I'm American boy. John Steinbeck. He one of my favorite writers, but that'd be more just fanboying.
I'm asking now that you said him, I will. Surprised he wasn't in the 5.
Yeah, it was, again, I'd just be more fanboying than anything. What am I gonna talk to the guy about? Mark Twain, just because he was so funny.
Yeah,
because he was like the first stand-up comic. I think that would be highly entertaining. Just talk to the guy. And then Alan Moore, as I mentioned earlier with him, and he could be my translator for Joyce. Dishonorable mentions. You might be surprised by these. They're not as long of a list. Number 1, F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Oh yeah.
Now, I'm only going by what I've heard and also from reading A Movable Feast, but apparently he was kind of a rich guy, pompous douchebag. And the way he treated people. Like, if you're like a waiter, he would not treat you respectfully.
Yeah.
One of those guys. And also, such a terrible speller that people thought he was like illiterate. Which is weird being, reading The Great Gatsby and stuff. He just all around seemed like an individual I would hate. He was whiny. And this is going by Hemingway, so I don't know how much, take this with a grain of salt. But in A Movable Feast, he described Fitzgerald as like there's a scene where he just keeps claiming he's sick when he's not. And he wanted to get him this thermostat. And this isn't fucking like some random shit town in Europe somewhere where in the 20s when that wasn't you can't just go get a thermostat. I mean, a thermometer, not thermostat. I think they ended up like trying to bring a rectal thermometer or something, but he's just like a whiny bitch and it's just irritating. To the next one, H.P. Lovecraft. Kind of a racist homebody. I don't know if I would. I'm sure he'd be interesting to talk to, but it'd be really awkward, I would imagine, like socially awkward. Dean Koontz, only because of the hair. That's it. Nothing against the guy. I just don't like that bowl cut thing he's got going on. I couldn't look at him, James Patterson, nothing really to do with the guy because I never read his stuff. It's just, I don't celebrate below mediocrity, I don't celebrate subpar writing that gets super popular and makes you $1 billion. I can't stomach that. It's like the same if I met one of these pop singers that actually don't sing their stuff, they have the auto-tune, they don't write any of their own music, they don't even write the lyrics, they're just basically a face, the front, like the old Backstreet Boys type of shit. I don't like that kind of stuff. J.K. Rowling, because she just turned into a real shitheel.
Yeah, she took a turn.
Yeah, I just anything I hear about that woman, I don't like. Jack Kerouac, he was a super alcoholic, and he's part of the beat movement and stuff, and he just seemed like, again, not a guy I would like.
Mm-hmm.
And the last on my list, and this isn't based on anything I really know too much about him or his work, Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah.
And that is just because he will not associate with other writers, and I just find that super douchey. Like, remember, he only talks to scientists, and he will not have a conversation with another writer, and he's like elusive, and it's like, you know what, suck it. Like, I'm sorry, that's not for me. I don't think I'd like to talk to that guy. I like his work, kind of.
Right.
Anyway, you're up next. Should I guess yours?
You can. They're probably not gonna be, because like I said, mine was a little bit more different. Mine was more of a
all around.
Well,
if you got comic book writers, I'm probably not gonna guess them. But
those are more in the honorable.
Do you have a strictly comic book writer in your top 5?
No, very close. It was teetering with my fifth. It was teetering, but
Neil Gaiman.
Yes.
Stephen King.
Yes.
Kurt Vonnegut.
Yep.
Kurt Vonnegut. Ooh, any classic writers on there?
No.
Okay. Who would? I'm just like you. I'm stuck on those last 2.
You should be able to get one. The other one's kind of out of left field that I don't think you would think of too.
Have I read either of these 2?
Yeah, the one that you should get. You've read. We've talked about already.
Not Steinbeck.
No.
Murakami?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because I think that would be weird. I think that would be interesting to have like the Stephen King and the Murakami like at the table.
Yeah. Give me a clue for the last one.
Not really novels, but writing in another medium.
Writing in another medium?
Yeah.
Movies?
Yeah.
A movie writer?
Yeah.
Oh, Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I figured that'd be an interesting group of people and a good conversation.
You went in on the roundtable discussion of having them interact. Because when I settled on my top 5, it was more about how my interaction with them versus all of them.
Yeah, no, it's more. This is more of just like it's the 5 of us and like. Or the 6 of us total, but it's more or less, I'm just kind of sitting there just soaking it in and enjoying everything. Because I figured, like, you got Stephen King, so you got, like, the horror, suspense, like, that kind of stuff.
Well, just having him and Neil Gaiman and Haruki Murakami all talking about writing and stuff would be fucking great.
It would be crazy. Vonnegut even.
Yeah.
With the sci-fi, and he was also very, like, he knew, like, he's a pretty smart guy from what I could understand. And then Kevin Smith would cover like the humor and I don't think people don't give him the credit that he deserves
as a writer.
As a writer, because like other than like Cop Out, he's wrote like all of his movies and stuff like that. He's done really good comic book work.
And you know what I like about Kevin Smith? His work isn't really derivative of other things too much.
Yeah,
I mean everything's derivative, but think about like Clerks. That's his original 100% story. Like before that came out, I don't remember anything about like close to that really.
No.
Take a Tusk.
Yeah.
That's not derivative of anything. These things could be inspired by other things, but they're not really set on, versus Stephen King, like a lot of his stuff is derived from his favorite pulp writers.
Yeah.
Neil Gaiman, it's all mythology stuff for the most part that he really liked growing up. And then Murakami, He's more along the lines of not necessarily being derivative, but I'm not fluent enough in Japanese culture from when post World War II when he grew up. I don't know what he would have been reading.
True, yeah.
That would have inspired him and maybe caused him to come up with some of these ideas. So I can't say for sure on him.
I just know just from the little bit that I've read from him and from what you've told me, I just think like the ideas and the way he writes and does things, I think would be an interesting conversation to have. Yeah, so like I said, that's the top 5. Pretty basic. If you know me, none of those names should really surprise you too much.
Honorable mentions.
Benjamin Percy, he's a comic guy, but I've been getting into his novels this past couple years. You hear more about that whenever we do our...
He did like with the Ninth Gate.
Ninth Metal.
Ninth Metal.
And Unforgetting Garden. But we'll get more into those whenever, here in a couple of weeks when we get to our what we've read for the year and stuff like that. This one's a little bit of a you could say a bit of a homer pick, but our good friend Nicholas Obregon, especially with, in the we've talked to him, but we never actually got a chance to meet the man
in person,
and I think he would be to have a meal with him.
Well, he's a cosmopolite. He's always around every fucking where. Yeah. I don't ever know what country the guy's in at any given time. I would also like to hang out with him, which he's always said, if we're ever around each other, let's go to the bar, let's go to the pub. And I'm like, yes, sir. If I ever go to Spain, I'm going to meet up with you.
Right. So this was my my comic book that almost made it into my, and it was originally in my top 5 until Murakami popped into my head. And it's kind of a little bit of a cheat because it kind of has to be 2 people, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Because Stan Lee kind of came up with some of the ideas, but
Jack Kirby was the real idea.
He did a lot of the legwork and stuff like that. Those guys pretty much created these new modern myths. At least from the '60s. With all the Marvel characters and stuff. And so I just think like I said, with them talking with everybody else, I think that would have been a cool conversation to have. And just also just personal heroes. It'd be be cool to meet them. Jeff Lemire, just for the simple fact.
I was going to name him at first, but I figured probably not, just because you said no comic guys, strictly comic guys.
Just because of there hasn't been really a thing of him that I read that I haven't enjoyed.
No, everything he writes is really good.
Really good. It's almost good, almost too good that it makes you mad.
He's one of those guys I'm really mad hasn't written a novel.
Yeah, that would
be. I would love to see his prose style.
Yeah, that would be interesting. H.G. Wells.
I was thinking if you were going to have a classic guy, it'd probably be Wells.
Yeah. Just because I think it would be interesting to talk to him and to talk about trying to come up with science fiction back then.
Or any ideas.
Yeah, really coming up with ideas.
And who his inspiration, he's probably Jules Verne or something.
Yeah.
Who his inspirations were.
And then to bring him back and then to have this conversation just to kind of see where he was kind of close to being right and where he was, you know what I mean? And just to get his takes on that kind of stuff, I think would be pretty interesting. And then my last honorable mention, Bram Stoker, I think would be kind of interesting. I've only read Dracula, but I'm sure if somehow that's what happened, I'd probably try to brush up on some other things that the man, did. But I think again to, another guy who kind of not started a genre, but at least put his mark on a certain kind and came up with a thing. I think would be kind of interesting to talk to him about.
When I was talking about how I would discuss the writing styles with Joyce and stuff, I think Melville would be another good one. Because whereas I wasn't a huge fan of Moby Dick, the actual story parts, not the whale shit, but just the writing of the story, they were all different. Each chapter was different and unique, and that stuff really is cool. I'd like to, that'd be cool to talk to that guy. What about dishonorable mentions?
Dishonorable mentions, I got H.P. Lovecraft, like you, because, again, just the questionable history. And I know, you'd be oh, well, what about, the Conan guy? He was kind of, you could say kind of like that, but, I enjoyed reading Conan. I love H.P. Lovecraft stuff. I'm just kind of okay, I get it.
You know what? I was watching a I got to show you that Alan Moore rapping, by the way.
Oh, yes, you do.
On the one Maestro class, though, he brings up H.P. Lovecraft. I think he was talking about style or language or something or other. But he said, and I think came from Michael Moorcock, maybe, that H.P. Lovecraft, I'm going to have to really paraphrase here because I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of he would always over-describe the indescribable.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's how do you do that?
But then when Alan Moore actually broke it down, because that's our biggest complaint, it's why do you have so many goddamn adjectives and stuff describing something that isn't describable? And then Alan Moore actually opened my eyes, something I can't believe I missed this the whole time. He did that on purpose. He would have all it's got tentacles and eyeballs in its waist and
so
2
you couldn't
heads.
Picture it?
Yeah, he over-described it so you cannot picture. It just gets muddled in your mind and it doesn't make sense to you, and that's why it's indescribable, because he described it so detailed, but none of them, it's all contrasting.
It doesn't match.
Yeah, the juxtaposition of just, one arm's a tentacle and the other arm's a claw. It's just weird shit. You just cannot figure it out. So that does make it like once you know it's purposeful, not just him being a fucking overly verbose writer, it makes for a better read. I would think. Maybe not.
I mean, it makes more sense. I don't think it helps with any of the actual reading. I just think it makes like I see what you're doing, but I still don't enjoy it. Cormac McCarthy would.
Now, what are your reasons? Just the ones I said, or
pretty much like I was actually kind of surprised that he was on yours because you read other things other than Blood
that
Meridian.
I've liked.
Yeah,
mine was specifically the man himself and not his work.
Yeah,
which I guess you could say for H.P. Lovecraft too, because I liked H.P. Lovecraft more than you did.
It's not that so much that I hate the guy, because I do want to get back to reading some more of his stuff. It was just. It's that thing where I talk about, like, it's almost like it's homework. Yeah. I think that's not my, you know.
What Lovecraft was for that, the cosmic horror genre and the creature feature genre? He was the first Model T Ford.
Yeah. He
was like, okay, this exists now. It's not fun to drive. It's not very good. But we can improve upon it because he invented it.
It's the building blocks. It's the cornerstone.
Like somebody has to be I'm sure the first light bulb sucked ass. Yeah. But somebody has to work and fix that. But you need the original wheel before you can, have tires and everything else. So like that's very interesting that he was able to do that. But reading his work is just like a chore more than it is enjoyable for the most part.
I think this is another one out of left field for just on honorable mention. Hitler.
Are you just saying that because Kanye West came out today and said he liked Hitler?
No, I didn't see that.
Did you see? I posted it.
No, I did not see that
on Alex Jones' show. And Alex.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't realize that was. I didn't realize
he had the mask on.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was. That was Kanye. No, I'm just.
Well, there's another clip I saw where he goes on talking about how great Hitler was and all this shit. I was like, what the fuck? But yeah, Alex Jones said like something about Nazis are bad, and then like right before it cuts out, Kanye West is just like, I like Hitler.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, I didn't realize that was Kanye West. I was just because he wrote like Mein Kampf and you just
didn't like Mein Kampf.
Well, and then he just
did you think the prose was bad?
Yeah, nothing.
Too much yelling. Too many exclamation points.
None of his politics or anything. He's just a shitty writer and painter.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I could probably think of some other ones. You know what I surprised didn't make your dishonorable mentions is Infinite Jest guy.
David Foster Wallace?
Yeah.
You know what? He probably could, because after learning about how he treated women and stuff, that also takes the personal... Because before it was just like, I'm not a huge fan of his writing, but I don't know anything about him personally, so I can't really judge. But now, when I know that he was like a fucking abusive asshole and controlling, then maybe then he really does it. I would... Dishonorable mention.
Yeah.
David Foster Wallace. Also, why you write like that, dude? I think he only had one story that I really, really felt deeply about, and it was only 2 pages, and it wasn't anything like anything else in that collection. So everything else, I was just like, God damn it, this is work. I appreciate what he did. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Just going by his writing. But he also wrote about things I have no interest in.
Right.
I don't care about marketing, ad execs, yuppies, tennis, golf. I don't like any of the stuff he talked about, like fucking blue or white collar white guy stuff. Like rich white guy stuff. I don't like that stuff. So no more on your.
Yeah, no, that pretty much sums up the list.
Anybody you might have forgot on your honorable mention?
I mean, again, I'm sure I could probably pull some people, but I'm still kind of like broadening out my like actual like novel. You know, these past 2 years I've been more like branching out, but even though still it's like I branched out to like these other people, but I want to read all their stuff before, like, you know what I mean? It's I'm sure there could be some, somebody else or a couple other people I could think of. I was almost thinking about throwing in Toriyama, I forget how you say his first name, but that Dragon Ball creator.
Yeah.
Just because, again, just another, franchise and story that, I grew up loving and enjoying, and stuff like that. But, I didn't throw that one in there. But
another honorable mention for me is Suzeki Natsume. I everything I've read of his I really like, but because he was Meiji period. I think he died in 1918, just somewhere around there. But I really like his work. Just the only thing, honestly, he could be interchangeable with Yukio Mishima, in my opinion. Not that their work is similar, but just that Japanese aesthetic is close, you know? And also with him, because he was more of a traditionalist with his writing style, because during the Meiji period, the West was just starting to get, wiggle its way into Japan.
I was gonna
trying to think of a nicer way to say it.
I was gonna say evade, but I was like, that might not be the right word to use.
Yeah. So the West started getting its dirty mitts into the Japanese culture around his time period. So you do get a lot of like stories set where it's like the themes are not about a Western invasion, but just about like losing Japanese culture, so to speak.
Like Last Samurais and things like that, Ronins and things.
But Soseki, Natsume Soseki's work, he was I always get it because I think it's back when he was around. It's always last name, so it's Natsume Soseki. Yeah. But then like people now call him Soseki Natsume, which always throws me off because like I think Murakami is Murakami Haruki actually. I never understood that. I don't know what it's always they do their surname first. But anyway, his work is at that period where it's just kind of you get hints of that about like the Western culture and stuff, but they aren't necessarily stories where they're trying to think of the word. Like they're not pushing away the Western culture, but they're not necessarily accepting it. It's just like that curiosity phase where it's like, what is this? This is something new. So a lot of them would test out the waters and wear suits, and some women still had the kimonos, but then like some women wanted to wear Western dresses, just things like that. But then when you get to Yukio Mishima, he's super pro emperor, pro samurai, fuck the West, even though he dressed in Western clothes and wrote in kind of a Western aesthetic. And also, like, when I'm saying the West, I'm not talking about just, like, the U.S. and even England. Like, Russia is a big influence on Japan. More so than probably, like, Russia and French, I think, more so than English at the time period. But Yukio Mishima, his work is always the themes of pushing back against the West and identity of Japan, be strong with you, like that kind of stuff. Like I said, they could be interchangeable in my opinion just because I like both of their works. Probably like Natsume Soseki's more, actually, because it's more positive. Whereas Yukio Mishima, the stuff I've read, a lot of it's very down, sad, suicide. Suicide is a big thing in his life.
Obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Whereas Soseki, he had I Am a Cat. Just a whole novel about being a cat and the view of the world from a cat's perspective. So, yeah, that's our table of discussion. It'd be real fun to end this on.
What's that?
It'll be difficult for probably both of us, maybe, especially you.
Oh, yay.
What would you talk to my 5 about?
Your 5?
So, James Joyce. Not knowing anything about really James Joyce, but his fart fiction, his fart letters, and his stuff like that. Finnegan's Wake.
I'd just be like, why you gotta write like that?
Tolkien,
I think could be interesting. Without reading The Lord of the Rings, but I think I would still like to talk about like the world building and then like you said like the language, just the whole kind of creating this basically a genre more or less from whole cloth.
Edgar Allan Poe.
I would like to see how close he is to like like the stories, because they're always kind of dour and like morose and like. But I would also like, because like he said he did the first detective story, so
he invented the detective pretty much.
So that would be interesting. I would like to talk to you about.
It would be weird to see, like, is this guy really as morose as he appears in his work?
Yeah,
probably not. I don't think most people are a direct reflection of their work.
Yeah.
Yukio Mishima.
I don't know. Like, I feel like I would be just worried about offending him.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like
Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh man, I just tell me some story. Just go.
Just go.
Just go. Like,
rant on a topic.
Yeah, just go and just let me know whenever. Just give me the bag of drugs that you're gonna be taking during the thing, and just let me know when you need a new one. And I'll go. One
important detail we overlooked: we did not discuss the age of the author when we're talking to him. Because are we talking about Hunter S. Thompson in the later years? Or are we talking about him in the 70s? Because that's vastly different.
Yeah, true.
Versus some people like a Neil Gaiman, other than experience, it's probably not going to vary too much. But Hunter S. Thompson, Like, that's a lot different talking to a 22-year-old Hunter S. Thompson versus a fucking 52-year-old.
Well, that'd be like with Stephen King. I would want a little bit of an older Stephen King because I want to hear about like the Coke stories and the like writing Cujo on a
See, when we mentioned
weekend.
the living authors, I'm like me, you probably assume just how they are now.
Yeah.
Just now. But I mean, you could pick any time period in their life. I would be also interested if you could kind of go through their life and just be like, I would like to talk to Haruki Murakami when he was writing his first novel before he had nobody knew who he was and he didn't have any experience in writing, or Neil Gaiman when he's trying to break into the business, or Stephen King when he was getting rejected a million times.
Yeah.
And then I would like coked up Stephen King in the 80s, and you could just go through decades of their lives. Would be really cool to talk to him because everybody they changes so much for the most part, except for H.P. Lovecraft. I feel like that guy never.
No. Well, he wasn't around long enough really to change. Wasn't it like his 30s that he ended up dying from that cancer?
Stomach cancer, I think.
Yeah.
Most of those guys died early. I think he outlived. I know he outlived Robert E. Howard.
That's only because he killed himself.
Yeah, like 33 or something, or 30. Like, he was really young. Fitzgerald died young. I think 42, maybe. Yeah, that's depressing. So anyway, is that it? Is that all we got?
I think so.
All right, folks, because Spencer wants to hear Alan Moore rapping really bad.
Yes, I do.
Oh, it's so awkward. And I'm not giving the fans any... buy the Maestro class if you want to know why he raps. Because he says he invented gangster rap and then proves it. In the 70s, he invented gangster rap, apparently. If you want to check out our stuff on social media, is that it?
I think that's the only thing we got, right?
At DPW Podcast, Also, I changed the YouTube now, too, finally. So, at YouTube... At DPW Podcast, at YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, surprise announcement, Spencer, because we've been getting a lot more interest recently for some reason.
Oh, yeah, now that everything's gone.
Yeah. I'm wondering if maybe we just let the podcast ride next year. Just keep it going. Maybe. We'll discuss. Yeah. So anyway, folks, thank you for listening. Spencer's OnlyFans. I gotta say it again. The Paraguay... I'm changing it. Possum Puncher. No, you were the Possum Puncher. I want to change it to Penguin Puncher.
Penguins are so cute.
Yeah, that makes it rough. Because possums, but I like possums more because they're...
No, the possums got like the shell though, right? So they don't...
No, you're thinking of armadillo.
Oh, yes, I am.
Then you could be the Alaskan armadillo. There's no fucking armadillos in Alaska. I can't think of a place in Texas that starts with an A.
Austin
Armadillo Assaulter. Fuck. So easy. Anyway, thank you for listening. We will check you next time.